Husky Stadium sold out and Utah's coming to town. It's time for some keys to the game.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. We write inside the Huskies for Fan Nation Sports Illustrated. Check out all our written work over there at edside.com/college/Washington. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Lars Hanson, it's time for one of our favorite shows that we get ready for during this football season every week. It is time for some keys to the game. We are starting, as we always do, on the side of Washington's high-flying offense. What do you think is the Huskies' number one key to just, overcoming a really tough Utah defense?
Not necessarily a rinse and repeat performance from USC, but I do think, again, it starts with establishing the run, because once the offensive line in those first few plays and that first couple of drives are able to prove, hey, against even a better defensive front, that we actually can hold our own and kind of set the tempo and set the kind of just control the line of scrimmage early, that will allow, because you're going to have drives that stall against Utah's defense. It's not going to be like USC where you're just going up and down, up and down, up and down. But at the same point, Washington has been at their A game when they've been clicking early. They can struggle, mid second quarter, late fourth, whatever. But having that tempo and setting that kind of control early will really kind of lay the foundation for Penix in the passing game to go. Because it's not the run to set up the pass, right? But it's just a matter of establishing the line of scrimmage more so than anything else.
No, I like that a lot, because the Utes can get after the passer. That's one thing they're really, really talented at. So just finding a way to throw them off their game a little bit. And one thing, and you mentioned it on yesterday's show, which I really liked, is you talked about how the secondary isn't necessarily the world beaters that it once was, right? There's no Jalen Johnson back there. There's no Clark Phillips, and the secondary is still solid. We're not knocking Utah's secondary in any way when we say that, but it's just not what it has been in years past. And I think that just Washington's passing attack has been incredible all season long with everything they've done. Yeah, there's been a misstep here, there's been a misstep there, but that happens over the course of the season, especially when, your quarterback has the flu and it looks it definitely for 2 weeks. So I think that's one thing that the Huskies really need to do. But I think that my number one key is protecting Michael Penix, because we just mentioned Utah's defensive line. Jonah Ellis is a fantastic player on the edge for him. And I think that one thing the Huskies have done a really good job of all year, yet again, is making sure that Michael Penix stays upright. And I talked about this with our buddy Spence McLaughlin over on Locked On Pac-12 as well. And one thing the Huskies have done really well when it comes to protecting Michael Penix for the majority of the season is they've done a really good job on the interior of the offensive line. We knew that coming into the year, they'd be replacing 3 starters, and they've done a really good job of that so far, despite a host of injuries at the position. Now that Parker Brailsford has just been, I think it's fair to say that he should be in consideration for being a freshman All-American at this point in time at center. And then Nate Kalepo at guard has had his ups and downs a little bit. And then Julius Buelow at the other guard spot. Now that he's back and looks like he's getting closer to 100% every single day, I think that the Huskies offensive line can do a really good job of just setting the tone in this game.
Exactly. Because that's where, it's where you live and die, right? Because if you can't block and you can't control the line of scrimmage, you're not going to have success, no matter whether it's Utah or Washington, for that matter, right? Because it's a matter, and that's, if you go back and watch the USC game, that's why they had so much success, is USC really couldn't get any movement up front, and Washington was able to just have their way at times, and with the run or the pass. And so, Utah obviously is a much better defense, so there's going to be a little bit more of a challenge there. But I still think this offensive line, when fully healthy, which they pretty much are now, and again, aside from Mateo Melee being out for the year and everything, the offensive line they've been going with the past few weeks, with the addition, the return of Julius Buelow, that seems to really kind of have cemented the offensive line. That's not a knock to Garrett Hatchett or any of the other linemen that have gotten a chance to play this season. But I just think this set of 5 really is kind of built different. They're just really in cohesion. So if they're able to, but again, if the offensive line struggles, that's maybe where you see a Garrett Hatchett come in. Well, actually, maybe not because it was his.
I was going to say,
but you might see a few other guys kind of rotate around.
A Landon Hatchett, maybe Jalen Clem, somebody like that. Yeah,
exactly. But ideally, you don't want that scenario to come into play. And I think Scott Huff, I would be surprised even if they struggle the first couple of, if they really, really struggle and they're down 17-3 at half. That would be when you make a change, but I just don't envision that being the case. But to the whole point, it's a matter of get the offensive line confident, right? Because they're a confident bunch, but then when the game kicks off, it's like, wow, this team is actually a lot stronger than we thought. I'm I'm a half a second behind, and then that's how the momentum can change, and especially in a top 15 matchup. This is when the top 20 matchup, right? This is when that it can swing on the stop of a dime. So making sure you don't lose momentum for multiple drives, I think, is another thing, because to be fair, that's where Washington has struggled when they have on offense. It's sustaining drives. It's sustaining consistent drives. It's, hey, we scored against Stanford, but then it took us a little bit to get our second score and our third score. Whereas earlier in the season, this team was scoring when they wanted to, no matter what the defense was doing.
And of course, that's going to happen when, you face some weaker defenses earlier on, and then you face now Utah, and then next week is Oregon State, where it's two tough defenses in a row. But I think that I like that. And I think that one of the other things is, I don't think that you can run the ball the same rate that you did against USC against Utah. I know that's not a bold prediction or anything, because we have those later. But I think that finding a way to, at the very least, show that you can run the ball consistently, even against a tough defense, is going to be very important. Because moving forward, again, with Oregon State on the horizon, and then Washington State, and then a potential Pac-12 championship game, where, that's right now, that's probably Oregon, but whoever it ends up being in that game, if the Huskies are able to get there, is going to have a solid run defense. But of course, their number one priority is going to be, all right, we need to throw Michael Penix off his rhythm. And if Dylan Johnson can show that he is just still that same dude where he's not rushing for 250 yards again, but just solid, where it's, whether that's 90, 100, 110, 120 yards, something in that range week in and week out, then that's going to go a really long way for this offense moving forward.
Right, exactly. And I think, but it's kind of like, it's almost like that's what we expect Washington to do. And so it's a matter of just kind of seeing that happen, right? It's because it's one thing to say, it's another thing to do it. But I think I talked to Lee Marks after Wednesday's practice, and that's basically what he said, is where it's like, you're not going to expect Dylan to run for 250 every game. He has that potential, right? But when you face better defenses, and also the emergence of Tyrell Rogers and a few other guys, I think it's a matter of, can you still just get the scores and have the positive plays, right? I think it's a matter of, can you get 3 to 4 to 5 yards per play, right? Because if you're in the 2 to 3, now you're setting yourself up for 3rd and 5, third and long, whereas 3rd and 1, 3rd and manageable, right, exactly. And so it's a matter of just staying on not in rhythm, but
just ahead of the chains.
Ahead of the chains, but also kind of just staying on time, right? Staying, and that's because that's what Mark said. It's just don't set us back, right? Just kind of be. Right. It's almost like what the tight ends are, where it's like, and the receivers to a degree too, where it's like, hey, just don't have a negative play, don't have a stall, don't have a drop, don't just, even if you're having a 2 or 3 yard gain, positive momentum is what we're looking for.
I like that a lot, and I feel like, before we move on to the defensive side of the ball, we're going to have to take a second here, because we're going to talk about our friends over at Jace Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection that we have. And today I want our chat to be a little bit more personal, because we are going to give a huge shout out to our friends over at Jace Medical, because there are so many, there's so many just times of uncertainty in people's lives, right? Whether it be, a natural disaster or just supply chain shortages. There's so many things that are going on in just in our world nowadays. And in these times of uncertainty, you don't have to worry whether or not you can refill your prescriptions. And that's possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. You can go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace: I'm thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. And I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered the antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having your supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Well, let's move over to the defensive side, huh? We've got a whole bunch of stuff that we're working on for Inside the Huskies right now. And one thing that I'm writing about that's probably going to be out by the time this show is out as well is my number one thing is stopping Utah on the ground. I know, huge shocker when you look at the numbers. Utah is averaging about 70 yards less per game through the air, 60, 70 yards, somewhere in that range per game than the team in 11th place in the Pac-12 in terms of passing yards. What does that mean? Obviously, stop the run. And the Huskies have had trouble with that at times this season. And I think that we're going to see them sell out to stop the run in one of those traditional looks where we talked about, because we asked the coaching staff when they talked about rolling out 3 linebackers a lot against Stanford. I think that we might see that again this week against Utah, where you're not necessarily as concerned about them beating you through the air. So why not sell out with some of these extra bodies to stop the run?
Right, and especially with Jaquindon Jackson had another 100-yard game after last weekend because Sione Vaki,
that kid can play.
The fact that you have a safety listed number 1 on PFF, and again, we're splitting hairs here, but number 1 among Utah's entire offense for rushing, that kind of he's more of a secondary kind of emergency option. But and to that point, we saw against Oregon when he came in and fumbled. So that's an opportunity for Washington to where, hey, when he's in the game, you have to be alert for multiple reasons. 1, because he can certainly run the ball, but 2, because he doesn't primarily play on offense, there is a chance that, hey, miss signal, misplay, delayed, whatever, that you can force a turnover or at least capitalize on a tackle for loss and kind of just take that opportunity, because like we're saying, you're going to have to take those opportunities when they're there because Utah can run the ball. So if you have them, and that's kind of where Washington has struggled at times this season, where they'll have guys 3-4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden it's a 12-yard gain, and it's like, wait, what happened here? It's like it's a combination of missed tackles and then also just not taking advantage of the opportunity when they're there. So I think both of those combined to where if Washington gets in a situation where it's 3rd and 8 and either Vaki or Jackson's in the game, they can still run the ball on 3rd and 8. And so you have to be able to make those key tackles when it matters. And we've seen them get better, but that will still always be a point of emphasis for this defense.
No, absolutely. And that's the number one thing, right? Where it's tackling, because you can do a whole lot to sell out and stop the run. But if you're not wrapping guys up and getting them on the ground, it doesn't really matter. I feel like we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the secondary just over this episode because, with all due respect, that doesn't matter right now. Where Dom Hampton could come up, play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. We'll probably see a little bit more of Cameron Fikulanen, Mish Powell, just to give some shout outs there, where he's been really good in run support. Jabbar Muhammad has done well tackling, especially behind the line of scrimmage. And I think that this is all going to start up front with the defensive tackles, right? Where it's Tuli Gasanoa and MJ Ale. I went back and I was just watching just the film of the Oregon game the other day, because that was obviously just the most comparable rushing attack that we're just gonna like have seen on film from a team that Washington has played this year. And one thing that I noticed is that MJ Ale gets into the backfield at an impressive rate against the run. He's really, really good at getting back there. And while he's not always, sometimes he needs to do a better job of making contact when he gets back there, but he does a really good job of blowing plays up and making things difficult on offensive linemen. And I think if he can just, even if he just does a little bit better job of slowing down ball carriers moving forward, that could have a huge impact on Washington's run defense.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, I know this is not breaking news here, but everything with Washington's defense runs through Edefuano Luficio. So I think that he has the highest tackling grade for Washington among any defenders. It's also kind of crazy, number 2 and 3 on that list. It would blow your absolute mind. But again, it starts with Eddie. You want to take a guess really quick before I finish?
I kind of do, yeah. I think that Mish Powell's up there.
No, so no. To be clear, there is no minimum. Both of these players.
Oh,
have played,
okay, no minimum.
But both of them have played 4 games, so it is legitimate. It's not just a two off and 5 plays. So it's both players.
So,
one's a starter and one's a backup.
So you hinted at 4 games. So was one of them a freshman?
No, one's definitely not a freshman, and I don't believe the other is a freshman. He might be a redshirt freshman, but I believe he's a sophomore.
Say, is Maurice Himes one of them?
He's number 8.
Oh, yeah, that's not close enough here. All right, who do we got there?
Dyson McCutcheon, number 2 at 80, and Asa Turner at 81.2. Crazy that both of them have played for him.
This, which is tough.
Exactly. And so one of your leading tackler, Eddie, is certainly going to play, but we're that second. And I think to our point here, talking about Utah's run, if they're able to get into that second level past Eddie somehow, or if they're running around him and kind of scheming around him, Dom Hampton, Cam Fab, Mish, if he's back there, Jabbar, if he's back at safety, which is, I love that in Chuck Morrow's defense. But no matter who's in that kind of last line of defense, you can't have a game-breaking run, right? You can't have a 50-plus yard or 40-plus yard, because those are the ones that start to add up more and more as the game goes along, and Utah gets even more confident. Hey, not only can we run, we can gash Washington on defense. So Eddie is kind of the key there, but really that's that last line of defense, because you're absolutely right. Thule and MJ and Voy and all those guys do their job. The secondary shouldn't matter. But we have to mention the fact that Utah is good at running. So if they're able to get past the first couple lines of defense, the secondary still has to be able to be sound and run tackling, which has been hit or miss at times. Again, the ones we know are going to deliver, Mish, Jabbar, Dom, we can probably throw in there at this point.
Absolutely, yeah.
But beyond that, it's like, hey, can we make the tackles on a consistent basis if they get to that second and third level?
Right. And I think that because I feel like we should definitely refocus on the defensive line. The one guy that everything runs through up there is Tuli Gasanoa. And he was on a limited snap count against USC, and Chuck Morrell seemed really confident that they're able to give him a much larger role this week against the Utes. And so I think that just being able to have him back in the lineup, whether it's because it sounded like he played something around 15 snaps. I don't have the snap counts in front of me, but he played somewhere in that 15 snap range. And then if you double that, you get him somewhere between maybe 25 and 30. That's a huge impact in the middle of the defense for the Huskies. And that's no shot at, Afatui Tuitele or Jacob Bandis, but Thule being that 6th-year senior, a dude who's just so stout in the middle against the run. He is exactly what you need to beat this Utah team and just kind of keep them from doing what they want to do on the ground.
Exactly. And I think, I mean, even not to throw shade on Thule, but Voy, I think bringing that pass rush element also and kind of the disruptor either outside or inside, I think he's the X factor, right? Because Thule, absolutely. Like Thule and MJ are 1A, 1B, right? So no matter, they're obviously at the top of the list in terms of impact players. But that Voy is really the X factor here, because Braylon and ZTF are going to make their plays when they want to. But when you have that second group in, right, when ZTF and Trice aren't in, when Thule isn't in, when MJ isn't in, you still have to have the same level of success, because I think we saw times last year where, hey, the starters came out and the second stringers kind of not let them back into the game, but certainly didn't have the same level of success that the starters had. Voy is not that kind of guy. Voy is the guy where he can pick up right where Thule and MJ leave off. And Bandis has also kind of done his job in the run and things like that. But I'm curious to see if Voy has an extra special game because of the fact that he's playing is because he didn't have any super ties to Utah, but being a former Utah prospect, it certainly would be good to show out against your home state.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like the last thing that we should say here, because you mentioned ZTF, and I feel like I mentioned this on yesterday's show too, but one thing that he talked about this week was that he said, I kind of needed to refocus myself. And I figured out he said he figured out a pass rush plan, but one of the things that he figured out was that he couldn't jump the snap as often as he did. And because that freed up so many rushing lanes. And now that, we haven't necessarily seen him do that as much recently. And now that he's not really doing that, this is the kind of game where that needs to show up against the run, where he needs to make some of those tackles and just do a better job of setting the edge, because we don't know if Sakai Salafo is going to play. He got hurt and he had to leave the USC game, and his status is still somewhat uncertain for this weekend. So I think that having that extra edge setter and just have it be CTF, where that's something he had talked about coming into the year of, yeah, I know I need to do a better job of setting the edge against the run. That would be really, really helpful for this defense.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's because I think, and Zion's he hasn't been a work in progress in that regard, right? Because he's so talented and he's able to anticipate, but sometimes that anticipation has got him. It got him against USC even, where he jumped off sides. And so I think just a matter of almost like playing the run more, and if your pass rush happens to come true, more power to you. But just focus on kind of being that, don't get beat, right? Don't let your skill set beat you, is I think Zion's key here.
Lars, I got a question for you. Are you ready for some bold predictions?
Always.
That's what I like to hear. So we're going to get there, but first we're going to give a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks, because basketball season is here. And now on Prize Picks, you can pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league which is created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at over under 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. And it's so much fun to talk about Prize Picks because everybody knows that I love fantasy sports, and it's just one of my many nerd things out there. And Prize Picks is just so great at this because now you can also play alongside of some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can find those people in the community plays tab under the promos tab of the app to view their entries each week. And just have some fun with that. I feel like that's a really fun way to go about it. Prize Picks is also really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are some of the things that make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Do you want to get in on the action? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Let's do it. Let's get right into it. And I feel like everybody knows where I have to go to start this. I don't remember who picked first last week. So do you want to do the honors?
I was going to say, actually, I think you did pick last week because
perfect.
The exact same lead in was, I think I'll go first this week, right? So, okay, you know what? I'll go first this week. So you know what? I'm going to cheat here a little bit. I'm going to parlay my bold predictions with FanDuel. Ooh. So, and I a little bit of gripe here, and there is no individual player parlays this week. A little downside there, but one that's intriguing that kind of does matter in the course of the game. Each team scores 2+ touchdowns and 2+ field goals is at plus 950. I have not seen any easier money because, as we talked about, the defenses are going to make their plays. So I think field goals will be had in this game, but touchdowns will be had in this game.
Right.
So whether or not there's 2, I think is the key there. Right. But I think certainly that would, so mine is, I'm going to take that one. And so then build off of that. Give me, and so with the 2 touchdowns, so Grady Ghost gets 2 field goals, my bold prediction there. The other side of that, give me Rome Odunze 2 touchdowns, and he gets back to 100 yards, he gets 110.
I like that. So because you went with 2 there, I'm going to parlay these 2 together also, and I'm going to throw it out there. And I'm going to go with one of our traditional anytime touchdowns, but I'm going to start it with the Michael Penix one since we just always have to do that. And it's not that he didn't get back on track against USC. He just didn't live up to his normal lofty expectations in terms of yardage. And, that's all credit to Dylan Johnson. So shout out to Dylan as per usual. He's one of my favorite interviews on the team, by the way. He's just such a fun guy to talk to. He's always really energetic and always has something great to say, but I'm actually not picking Dylan Johnson here. So I'm going to parlay Michael Penix over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I'm going to say combined touchdowns. So maybe he runs one in again. We'll see. I'm going to throw that out there. And I'm going to parlay that with one I know I put on here a couple weeks ago. Tybo Rogers' first career touchdown is coming in this game. I think that he's somebody, I wrote about him on Inside the Huskies. He continues to rise up the depth chart. He continues to see more touches. He actually saw the second most touches in the backfield behind Dylan Johnson in this game. Yeah, there was a pretty big disparity there. It was I believe 28-6 or something like that in terms of first and second there. So still a very large gap, but I think Tybo's electric with the ball in his hands, and the coaching staff has shown that they're not afraid to put him in key scenarios down in the red zone, and I think that we could see him do that today, or excuse me, Saturday. Getting ahead of ourselves.
I know. Right. I was gonna say, hopefully it's not today. But yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, I think Tybo is due for one at this point. If it's not this week, it'll be against Oregon State. I mean, he's just due for one. I mean, he honestly should have had that one when he dove and he landed in the end zone, but he was down at the one that Penix punched in, or Dylan Johnson punched in at the end of the game, I believe. So he's right on the cusp. That's a perfect one for there. So I will steal yours and go for my always anytime touchdown. I almost had it last week, if not for the interception. So give me who do I want to go? Because I already have Rome for 2 touchdowns.
Great podcasting here.
I'm thinking. Give me Jeremy Bernard anytime touchdown, because we haven't done that one of the while. Jalen's
that's an old reliable here.
Right, and I would be surprised if Jalen McMillan plays against Stanford, just from my conversation with Jamarcus Shepard.
You mean against Utah?
Or what I say?
Stanford.
USC? Oh, Stanford. Oh, geez, I'm way 2 back, 1 forward.
See, we're all over the place here.
But yeah, I would be surprised if Jalen McMillan plays against Utah. And that would open up some more lanes for Jeremy. He's due for one. It's been a minute since he's been there. So Jeremy, come through for me, please.
I'm trying to think. Do I have any other offensive ones with me today? I'm going to go with one, and I'm actually going to steal one from you. I'm going to say Jack Westover, 4+ receptions in this game. Just keep it short and sweet with that. I'm just going to say 4+ receptions from Jack Westover in this game.
You know what? That's what's funny is he had that big game against Michigan State, and he's been there, right? He's healthy, he's absolutely all that. But I think because the way Washington's offense plays, they spread out the tight end targets more so than focus in on one, which is a testament to Nick Sheridan in that room, right? It's better to have depth than it is to have one singular go-to guy that can easily get covered. Right. So I think this could be a big tight end game just in general as well. So let's flip it around here. Let's flip it around. Let's go to the defense, and I'm going to double down on my one from last week, and I'm going to say Washington gets 3.5 sacks, and I'm going to take the over.
Okay. I like that. I can see that one. It's just a matter of how often is Utah going to drop back and throw? That's my one question, because I can see that. Yeah. Utah's offensive line it's good. It just hasn't necessarily been super efficient this season from some of the advanced metrics. So I can definitely see that, and it could be, a big game for the edge rushers. I wanted to go with a tackles one, and I'm going to go with I think he was last week's leading tackler. I should have the stats. I've got some other ones pulled up over here, but I'm going to go with Dom Hampton is the leading tackler in this game. I think that he's going to play close to the line of scrimmage, and because he was the leading tackler against USC, but I think that he's going to play close to the line of scrimmage. He flies to the ball, and I think that he's going to be in there time and time again. Give me 10 plus again. I'm going to double down there.
I was going to say, because you got to go away from Eddie at some point, right? Because as much as we love Eddie, it's like, well, hang on a minute.
Got to spread the love out on the show.
Well, and actually, that's not a bad pick, given Dom is the team high in tackling right now. Leads the team in tackling.
I didn't know that it changed. Oh, perfect.
And leads by 6 over Eddie.
6, yeah, because he had a big day. He had 10 against USC.
And so that's a good one. Do I have another defensive one in me, or do you want me to just go straight into the score prediction?
I want one more, because I got one more for you.
Okay, I'll do one more. Does anybody get a turnover? Washington forces 2 turnovers, and I don't know if they will both be fumbles. I doubt they'll both be interceptions. So I'll put the over-under at turnovers at 2, and I'll put it at 1.5 and take the over with 2.
Okay. I like when you set lines for yourself. I respect that. So I've got, I want to go interception, and I want it to be bold and fun. So hear me out here. There's going to be we can put this together with your 2+ turnovers. 1 interception. You're going to like this one. Raylan Goforth gets it. He had a highlight reel hit against Cam Rising in Utah in the Pac-12 championship game last year. Give me Raylan Goforth getting an interception in this game. I'm not going to tell you how it happens because I don't have that much of a foresight, but I'm going to nail that one down here as my last bold prediction for the day. And drum roll here as we move into Lars' score prediction, or do you have something on that one?
No, I do like that one because it's a safe but good one, right? Because I think there probably is a interception to be had. Utah won't throw it much, but if I say they're going to get 3 sacks, that means they got to throw it at some point here. So that's a good one. And Raylan, Raylan's been good this year. I think in his reserve role and just making an impact, that would be a good signature moment for him this season. I like that. So leading into it, so the over-under is down. Wow. It's down to 51.5. It was opened at 55. So we're talking low scoring. Spread is still 9.5 for Washington.
I'd slam that over.
Yeah, I'm going to go 35-24 Washington.
Okay, so they cover.
They cover, but I think into that, I'm going to add on a little bit here. I think it's going to be a late, couple of touchdowns and maybe an extra field goal in the fourth quarter to kind of ice it away. I still think it'll be close. I do think it'll be close at halftime. I'm not saying tied at halftime, but I could see, 17-10. I could see Utah covering at half and Utah pulling away late.
I like that. And as everybody knows on this show, unless you're new, which, hey, welcome if you are, I don't give score predictions because I am a jinx. Even though I'm going to say it right now, I'm 2 for 2 when I do give some kind of prediction this year on that front, because I told our buddy Spencer McLaughlin I had Washington by 3 against Oregon. And then on our crossover show with our buddy Mark Colkin last week for the USC game, I said Washington by 4. But I gave the caveat that they would cover. And, hey, they covered. So I'm 2 for 2, and I'm going to keep it that way. I'm not going to. I don't think I'm going to mess that up this week. But I would say that I would slam the over in this game. 51.5. Yeah. Shout out to our friends over at FanDuel. And with that being said, you got something out there?
I was going to say it is going to be raining, so
that's true.
It could be an ugly one. I'm just going to put that out there.
It's going to be windy too, which is going to make things interesting. And with that being said, Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all the everydayers out there for tuning in. We really do appreciate your everyday support. Make sure you tune into our Friday show where we are going to be doing a crossover with Locked On Utes. So that'll be a lot of fun. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And if you're new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We are there. We are everywhere. We do, again, appreciate the constant support. Please make sure you drop a comment, leave us a 5-star review, like the video, do whatever. We appreciate all of it. It does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Friday.